Hey guys, Neferta-san here. We're wrapping up with the superhero drawings. If you're just jumping into this point, I'm sorry. You missed a lot. You should go back to earlier episodes. But we were just looking through these superhero and supervillain drawings I did when I was a kid and kind of seeing what I can remember about them. I said last time that I thought we were getting close. And what I'm going to do is, instead of just keeping a timer like I normally do, and then I stop around the 20-minute mark, I'm just going to go through the rest of them. And then afterwards figure out if I should split it into two parts or not. We'll just see. I don't know. There might be too many. Maybe it'll be two parts. So if I quit without signing off like normal, that's why. But hopefully this will be one episode, even with this rambling opening. Moving on, though, we had talked about Rain last time. Next was Roaring Lion. Roaring Lion was part of a villainous duo, and you'll see the other guy here in a little bit. But the idea was that they were both... They came from... the idea for them came from Dungeons & Dragons monsters, I think. But I basically thought, what if there was, like, these two... I think they were supposed to be poachers. And I don't remember exactly how it happened. I guess it was probably Viglanium. But somehow they ended up with their DNA spliced with these animals. And I don't think it was meant... Like, I think it was an accident. But they were already bad guys. They were poachers. And they started using their new animal... powers to help poach, I guess, and they would be like a villain for any African based superheroes, I guess. I don't remember if I had any African based characters like a Black Panther or somebody like that. If I didn't, I was going to, because I don't think I was just going to have like people from like America or Europe come and solve this problem, even though that's where the villains are from. But I do remember that they were supposed to be operating in like this a safari type environment. That was the idea. But yeah, Roaring Lion obviously got lion powers. So he's got like lion strength and speed and sense of smell and stuff like that. And moving on, Riot. I could have sworn we talked about Riot. I guess that was probably Copy. That's right. Riot is a multiplier. He's a multiplying man. I think he's supposed to be... he was a Japanese villain. I think he was going to be a villain for Henshin, who was really my only major Japanese superhero, now that I think about it. All the Japanese villains I had were for Henshin. But Riot is named that because he can multiply himself enough times to become a one-man Riot. That was the whole idea. So he was just... Like, the idea, the image with this character, I remember it very well, was that like he would be fighting Henshin, Henshin, if you don't remember, is my Hulk character. So he was just this big red guy who was like 8 feet tall, 10 feet tall, whatever. And there was just... Riot is small. He's like 5 feet tall. So there would be just all these tiny duplicates of the same guy all over this big monster, just be like throwing them off. And and it was just an image that I liked and I thought was entertaining. But because of his ability to swarm this larger opponent, he would present a challenge in that way, despite not being very large. And that's really all there is to Riot. There's not a lot to explain there. Moving on, we've got Rocky. I know he looks like the Thing. I don't think that was the intention. I think he's actually based off of a character from like Thor, but that's beside the point. He's a rock man. I mentioned a while ago that I wanted to do a storyline with 4 villains who came together to represent the 4 elements, and I don't remember what the genesis of that storyline was going to be. I just remember that there was going to be some higher power or mastermind that would bring these 4 together as the 4 elements, and they were all meant to be people who were basically made of their element, with the exception of one who we haven't gotten to yet. But I showed you like Flame, who was going to be the fire one, and Rocky obviously was going to be Earth. So, or however you want to refer to that element, like the rocks or Earth or the ground or whatever. But he was going to be that guy. But beyond that, he is basically the Thing. He's a big, strong rock man. Except he's a bad guy. He's not. That's the big difference from the Thing. Cicada. Okay, so I just mentioned Henshin and how all of his villains were, all the Japanese villains were his, and Cicada is one of them. Cicada was meant to be like he was the Thunderbolt Ross. Like if Henshin was the Hulk, Sakata was going to be the Thunderbolt Ross. Except I don't think Henshin had a love story with Sakata's daughter. I don't even think Sakata had a daughter planned. But the idea was that he would he was a general guy in the Japanese army, and he got so frustrated not being able to stop Henshin, who was a legitimate threat. So he's a bit more sympathetic than Ross, who sometimes is irrational. But I think Sakata was meant to be pretty relatable and understandable. Like his frustrations with Henshin were completely well founded. But he does eventually get the same serum or the same treatment in order to try and stop Henshin, or like a modified version of it. So I don't think he was ever going to be mindless the way Henshin was, because Henshin, if you recall, was like the Hulk in the way that he was kind of this mindless ball of rage, but he was different in that he couldn't turn back into the scientist he once was. And Sakata similarly can't turn back, but he does at least retain his intelligence, the same level of intelligence he had before. So it works better than what was supposed to happen with Blockbuster, if you remember that character. But that's kind of it. I don't remember where his story was supposed to go after he transformed. I just thought it was a fun idea. And that's really it. And this was before I don't know if it was before they were published, but it's definitely before I had read the stories with Red Hulk in the comics, where Thunderbolt Ross actually became a Red Hulk. And I actually still haven't read those comics. I've just seen the reference in cartoons later, like in the 2000s. But at the time I was drawing this, I don't think I knew about that, or if I did, it was just in passing. So I thought this was an original idea at the time, but obviously it's hard to do anything original with superheroes these days. But the concept has also been done in the Hulk. Moving on, the Sandman was going to be another non-powered villain, so probably a villain for Shadow. But I think he was going to show up for other people later. But basically, he was based off of a character from Highlander, the TV series, who basically used knockout gas to commit robberies. And the idea with him was that he has these guns. He has aren't regular guns; they're guns that spray like a sleeping gas, like a very potent, instant knockout type sleeping gas, and he's got this mask on so he doesn't breathe it in. And that's where the name comes from. Sandman, he puts you to sleep. I think DC had a heroic Silver Age or Golden Age character. I think he was Golden Age character that was kind of similar. But he might have even had the same name. But this character, I think, yeah, the aesthetic or something about him might have come from that superhero character, but the initial idea for him came from the Highlander, who was this one episode villain that I thought was just a cool villain. I don't remember why I liked him, but I did. Anyway, moving on, Scion or Skyon. I don't know how this is supposed to be pronounced. So I can tell by looking at him right away he's based off of an action figure I had of Skeletor. Not the original Skeletor, but the one from the, what was it, like 2002, 2003 series where they did a remake of He-Man. And they tried to do like a darker, grittier version of it. And I liked that show a lot. I watched it at the time. And I hadn't actually figured the Skeletor from it. But that's where like this... I don't know exactly what it's supposed to be. Like in the action figure, it looks better than it does here. But it looks like almost like his abdomen is like sunken into him, which makes him look more skeletal. But then like the skin is clinging from his rib cage to the abs, and I think that's what I was trying to go for here. I think this character was meant for. I think he was meant to be more like an Egyptian themed villain, and I'm trying to find the hero. Yeah, Seton. I think he was meant to be like an opponent for Seton. I think they were tied together somehow. I just don't remember how. But like the fact that when I look at him I can only see blue skin and purple clothes is a real teller to me that was the inspiration for him. I don't remember if that was the colors he was going to have. But that's what I think when I look at him, just because of the association I have, I guess, in my head of how this character came about. But that's about it for him. Scream Queen, you might could guess, had like Banshee-like powers, which she had like a supersonic scream. And that's it. That's really all there is to it. She had the supersonic scream power. I don't think I had any other ideas for her besides that. I just wanted to, like, I had a loose idea for that, like, that power. I thought I needed a villain with that power, and Scream Queen was a name I liked. I don't know why I made it one word. It looks weird like this. Just looking at the words written out, I think I would change it back to 2 words. I think I was just trying to make it more like when you misspell a name or misspell a word to make it somebody's name. I think it was meant to be kind of like that. But anyway, that's kind of it. She's just like this young girl who had a Banshee power, and that's kind of it. Serpentine. Okay, so I'm gonna have to go back and reference older episodes again. I apologize for that, but if you remember me talking about Iceberg, who was one of my superheroes I had more fleshed out than a lot of the others because I'd actually written some stuff with him. But his origin involved this criminal organization who had taken Viglanium, the space element that was giving everyone superpowers, and found a way to manufacture in a way where it would combine you with things. So instead of giving you like a random superpower like it seemed to do by default, it would give you superpowers based off whatever you were like touching or in proximity with. And that, or at least that was the idea. And that's how Iceberg became Iceberg, because he was touching ice when he was exposed to it, and Flame similarly was touching fire. Serpentine is a member of that group, and I think might have been the leader, because they were going to be like kind of like a snake cult, like Cobra or Hydra or somebody like that. Because I noticed both DC and Marvel had these like snake themed. Hydra may not be who I was thinking of. They may just both have a Cobra, and G.I. Joe's got a Cobra. But I thought there's just this prevalence in superhero media of snake-themed, cult-like criminal organizations, and I thought I needed one. And they were the ones who developed this specifically for making snake people. And I think Serpentine was the leader. He was the one that got the snake powers. He might have. I'm picturing him having like extra snakes for hands, like his arms just become snakes instead of having hands, which seems inconvenient, but I think that was also part of his transformation. So he's not incredibly snake-like here. Like, he's obviously lizard-like to some degree, but not necessarily snake. But I think he also had snake hands, and I think he had, from the waist down, like a snake body. So if you can picture that, you've probably seen a character with a design like that before. I did not invent that. But yeah, that's him. He was going to be one of the big top villains for Iceberg. This snake guy, because him and his snake organization were going to be a big recurring antagonist for Iceberg in his adventures. Sharp Edge. So here, Sharp Edge, you see she has these they're supposed to be like liquid metal swords, basically from like where you see these things just above the elbow. She was going to have arms that were kind of like the I forget the names of the Terminators, but the second Terminator, the Terminator villain in Terminator 2. There's going to be like these liquid metal from here down. And she mostly just used them to make swords, which is why she had the name Sharp Edge. But they weren't always swords. She did have the ability to have hands. And possibly other things. Like, it was kind of limited. She couldn't make she could make a gun, for example. She couldn't, like, launch part of her arm off unless she wanted to, like, lose it. And maybe it wasn't even an option. But she could make, like, swords or, like, a mace or a club or a hammer or something like that. Different weapons, maybe even a key to unlock doors, things like that, which would be useful if she's like a thief. I don't think she had. I think this was another character that was just a superpower that I had the idea for, or I thought I wanted, and I didn't have like origin or motivations or character arc or anything like that planned out for this villain. because with a lot of the characters, I think I've said this before, a lot of the characters where I just wanted to get the power down. I just wanted to get the base idea ready, and then I figured I'd flush them out, maybe even redesign them or retool them once I was ready to use them. Because the plan was to write stories with them eventually, it just didn't happen. But yeah, so that she was one of those. Shebang. I think I just wanted like a cool glam villain. Shebang's power is that she can create explosions by touching things. Not necessarily like Gambit or Jubilee, but kind of, maybe a little bit like Jubilee. But Jubilees are more like fireworks. But like she would, like she'd be the. Okay, so if I'm gonna paint a picture to explain her power, you're like, say she committed a robbery, and then a big like one of the big superheroes lands in front of her. I don't know. Let's pick one. Speedy. Speedy comes up. This like superhero guy. He runs up because he's the Flash, and he's like, stop right there. And so she like kind of like she's super cool, super chill, and she like walks up to him and just like says something clever or whatever, and then like pokes him in the chest, and it just knocks him back and just sends him flying. And that was the basic idea with how this character would work. And so it would be hard to get close to her because if she could so much as lay a finger on you, she could send you flying. And yeah, that was the idea with this character, and kind of like Sharp Edge. I would flesh her. I was planning to flesh her out a bit more if I got the chance to use her. Shield. What is with this guy? Look, he's got like a Roman skirt on. I think he's supposed to have armor on underneath it. He's not wearing just like the skirt. But yeah, so I didn't want to draw the shield because I'm bad at drawing perfect circles, especially at this time. This was earlier. Even just drawing this part, it's still like more oval or eyeball shaped than it should be, because it was supposed to be like this big perfect circle, and the idea was that his shield wasn't just a shield that would like block projectile attacks or whatever, but it would also have like these hidden weapons inside of it, like it would open up and just open fire with like tiny turrets or something. There's supposed to be like guns or something inside the shield, so it could be offensive and defensive. Because it's too big to be like thrown around like Captain America's. Like this shield, like if he stood up, his head would just be like above the top of it. I think this is a big thing. He's just supposed to be like kneeling here. But yeah, that was the idea with Shield. He would. I think even at the time I thought he was lame. He's got like this stupid helmet. He just looks like a dork. But I don't know. I kind of like that about him. Honestly, I don't think he was ever going to be a major villain. But I like having loser villains occasionally. I think they're fun. So that's Shield. Shimmer. You may guess just by looking at this, Shimmer was kind of like when I made Phantom Kid, and I was just like, well, what if Danny Phantom was set in like a more traditional superhero universe along the lines of DC and Marvel, which is what I was trying to make. And so I did the same thing with Shigo from Kim Possible, because I thought she was really cool. And who didn't? Like, Shigo was awesome. But this was basically just me trying to adapt the powers and personality of Shigo. I don't know if Shimmer was going to be green. I don't think she was. I don't know what color she was going to be. I think she was going to have like a normal human skin tone. But I don't remember like what power or like what color her outfit or her energy was going to be. But she was just going to basically fight and behave similarly to Shigo. I didn't have a Draken or anything. And I think she might have even been more independent than Shigo was. Maybe more like Shigo was in A Stitch in Time. If you guys are familiar with Kim Possible, I don't know. But that was basically the idea with her. Was just like how I brought Danny Phantom and made a copy of him in this. I thought it would be cool to have a Shigo. And so this is my Shigo. Says I was wanting to pull from more sources than just Marvel and DC and the occasional like Image characters. But yeah, so that's her. Cynthia Show. I don't remember her necessarily. I can tell just by looking at her, she was meant to be like a business villain, like the Driscolls were, if you remember them. Just like a Lex Luthor type. If I dressed them in a suit, that was my plan. That's a good rule of thumb. Maybe she had superpowers. I'm trying to. I have the vague image of her like covering herself up in steel, like Colossus does in the X-Men. But I don't know if that's coming from nowhere. Like if that's just something I'm creating now, or if that was the actual plan and I'm just remembering it. I honestly can't tell. Probably she didn't have superpowers. Or maybe she would have gotten them later when it came time to actually like have to fight instead of using the usual like Lex Luthor methods of deflecting and hiding behind shadow businesses or whatever to hide your criminal activity. But she was going to be another business-based supervillain for different heroes than the Driscolls were. I just don't remember who or what her story was. If I made a villain like this who wasn't like some flashy superpowered thing, it was because I had a plan. So I definitely had a plan for her. I just don't remember what it was or who she was paired with, but I definitely had something in mind. I wish I could remember. But anyway, moving on. Jason Show. Okay, well here. Alright, so this guy is related to her, and he appears to also be unpowered, because he's got like this katana and this gun, which I think is all he had, and he's got like this half skull mask. And I can only assume he's her brother. I'm pretty sure that they're brother and sister. That sounds right to me. But shoot, I still don't remember what their plan. I know I had a plan with them. I just don't remember it. And I wish I did. I think, you know what? Actually, I think they were. I know who they were for. They were for the. I mentioned there was a superhero team that I was putting together. And you guys might remember who some of the members were. They were all spread out. Hirameku was one of them. But they were a superhero team of like teenage superheroes. Green Panther was one. Faye was one. That were this team, and like the idea with them was that they would have these like rotating villains, and they were like loosely based off of the Power Rangers story progression. Like if all of the Power Rangers seasons had been about the same characters, was like they weren't going to tell the same stories, but there was going to be parallels. I was using them as like a starting point, and I think Cynthia and Jason were based off of characters, villains from Power Rangers then. But they weren't going to be the exact same characters. They were just humans. But that's all. That's the best I can remember. So yeah, I'm pretty sure. Looking at how newer, like how much whiter. I don't know if you can tell in the camera here, but I can tell looking at it, like this paper is much newer and whiter than like Shimmer or Silhouette for these two. So this is definitely more recent drawing. It's also crisper and a little bit better. So that's all I've got. That I don't remember anything beyond that, like what the plan was with them, or even who from Power Rangers they would have been based on, or if they even were based on someone from Power Rangers. I am sure that that's the storyline they were meant for. Those are the heroes they were meant to face, but not everyone in that was like a Power Rangers knockoff.